Hello there! In this video, we will learn how to use Stable Diffusion and generate images with it. We are going to start from absolute zero, so even if you never use Stable Diffusion, this tutorial is for you. This tutorial is also suitable for people that played around and generated some art before, but want to learn how to control their outputs even more. Because in the beginning, I was also clueless. I used different prompts, but got lame results. And more importantly, I could not control what I will get. It was really about luck. 90% luck and 10% control. But after you will learn the settings and learn how to create good prompts, it will be more like 90% control and 10% luck. Luck will always be a factor, but eventually, if you spend enough time on an image, you will get what you want. Most of the time, you even get better results than you imagined. Another thing to mention is that all of the things you're going to learn here are going to work in any Stable Diffusion workspace. So even if you're using a Colab or this web UI or any other workspace that runs Stable Diffusion, you're going to see most of these settings, so all of this knowledge will be relevant. I'm using the automatic web UI because I just like it the most at this point in time. If you want to use this as well, you can find a link in the video where I explain how to install it on your PC. This web UI will use your own GPU to render images, so if you don't have a decent PC, you can also find another link to a Google Colab that actually lets you create images using a remote computer, so you don't need to have a strong GPU. I personally have a 1070 GTX card with 8GB of VRAM, so it is an old GPU, but I can still run Stable Diffusion locally on my PC and it works pretty well. If you have 2 or 4GB graphics card, you may want to consider using the Colab or another alternative, but you can check it yourself and see how it works for you. So after you are done with the installation, we are ready to go. This is the web UI of the Automatic 111. Now again, you can use whatever Stable Diffusion workspace you want, but most of these settings will be similar. Now we are going to start slow, we're going to learn one thing at a time, so we are not going to go over all of these settings because you're just going to forget it. When we're going to need some settings, then we're going to learn them. The very first thing we should know and we should focus on is the prompts, because the prompts are the core of Stable Diffusion. This is the way you tell the AI what you want him to create. It starts in the prompts and only then we add different settings. So the most important thing you need to understand about prompts is that you need to be as specific as you can. Because think about it, if you're going to say to this AI that you want him to generate an image of a dog, right? There are millions or even billions of options for images because this is not specific. The AI doesn't know what kind of dog you want, what is the size of the dog, what is the breed of the dog, what is the color, if it's hairy or not, what is the dog doing? Is he lying? Is he running? Do you want an image of a dog or a photo? Or maybe you want a pencil drawing? Maybe you want some kind of art style. All of these things are relevant when using Stable Diffusion. When we're saying that we want something specific for this picture, then the AI will know what to create and there are more chances that we are going to get something that we like, right? That's why I talked about 90% control and 10% luck. We want to have as much control as we want. So with providing more data, with being more specific, we are in control. So again, don't worry about all these settings. For you, this is the only thing that exists, this prompt line. We basically tell the AI what we want him to generate, and then we press on generate. That's it. Before we go to other things, we need to control our prompts. We need to know how to communicate with this AI. So let's start with actual practical examples. Let's say we do decide to tell him to create us a dog. As I told you, there are billions of possibilities. And from my little experience with Stable Diffusion, we're going to get something very weird that is not even going to look like a dog. Let's run generate and let's see what we get. So it took my GPU 20 seconds to generate this image. Now, my predictions were wrong. We actually got a pretty nice image of a dog. It's some kind of a pencil drawing. I don't really know this breed because I'm not an expert in dogs, but we did get some kind of dog. Now, if you had some idea in mind, you probably wanted something very specific. And it means that it's probably not what you were looking for. So we got lucky. We are in that stage that we are in 90% luck and 10% control, because with only 2 words, we can only get about 10% control. All the rest is luck, and we really got lucky with this image. If I'm going to run generate a few more times, we're probably going to get other images that are not as good as this one. So let's see a few examples. If I click generate again, it should create another random image from this prompt. Okay, so we keep getting lucky because these are kind of cute images of dogs. This is really a nice image. But again, we're not in control. We just get random images of dogs. So to have a specific image, we need to add more words. Let's say we want an image of a husky dog, and we want it to look like a real dog. Not like a painting of a dog, like this one, but an actual photograph. So we can simply type a photo or even a photograph of a husky dog. And then we can also say running in the snow. So now we provided a lot of information. Okay? Husky, I guess it's this one. So we also tell the UI what kind of image. We want it to be a photograph. We want it to be of a specific breed, a husky dog. We want it to do something, to actually run. And we also provide information about the environment in the snow. So now if we generate an image, we can actually get what we want. So we have full control. Now, this may look good to you, but maybe that's not exactly what you had in mind. Maybe you wanted him to be more furry. Maybe you wanted an image of him from the side, right? So no problem. We can just go and say a photograph of a husky dog, or maybe a side view photograph of a husky dog running in the snow. So now we should get a side view of a husky dog. Let's see if it works. And now we got something like a side view, but we got a lower quality for this dog. If we zoom in, we can also see that the eyes are kind of strange. So we are still not in full control. Maybe we can say a profile view, right? Profile means from the side. A profile view photograph of a husky dog running in the snow. Let's see what will happen now. So again, we did not get this exact side view, but we get different images of a husky dog. Now, all we do is change 2 or 3 different words, but real prompts, real specific prompts can be very long. They can fill this entire prompt screen. And we also have a thing that is called negative prompts. So negative prompts are things that we don't want to see inside our image. Okay? So we're going to get to negative prompts soon, but just understand this very basic thing about Stable Diffusion. We need to be specific. This is still a very basic and very, let's say, not good prompt because it still lacks a lot of information. And there are a lot of things that we can add. Now, you might be wondering, okay, but Should I just guess? Should I just spend hours and hours adding different words? It can take me a lot of time just to get one image. And you're right, there are actually a lot of people that already did that and they studied it. And the actual developers also give us information about what words can we use. What modifiers? A modifier is simply something that can change our image. For example, this profile view, it's a modifier. We want a specific image and we just use this profile view or photograph. All of these are modifiers. Now, I want to show you something that you can use, something that will help you. If you go to the OpenArt website, I'm also going to leave a link in the description. You can find this prompt book. So this is a prompt book that they created, the developers created, and you can actually learn about creating good prompts using this book. Now you can go over here and download the PDF, and let's just see what they have inside. It's a very long little book. It has 100 pages, so I'm not going to go over all of this book with you. But if you are really serious about Stable Diffusion, and if you really want to be in full control, you can read this book. And it's not about reading, it's just a very casual book with information. So you can really finish this book in like a half an hour. But it tells you a lot of useful things. It really starts from zero and it explains different things about prompts. Like, for example, how do we create something like that? You can see the prompt over here, but they also explain the way they created this prompt, right? What is the logic behind this prompt? Then they give you a lot of different examples. Then we have this modifier section. So we can see this chart over here, and we already talked about a husky. We can see that this is a good prompt. Close-up Polaroid photo of a husky, soft lighting, outdoors, 24mm, Nikon ZFX. So you can actually provide the AI with the kind of camera you want this image to be taken, right? It's not really using the camera, but it will understand what kind of image you want. You tell him what kind of lens for the camera. Now, these things are more suitable for people that actually have some experience in photography, but you don't have to use this. The kind of photo, do we want it to be close up? We want it to be extreme close up. We want it to be a long shot. Okay, then there's the style. It can be a Polaroid, it can be a color splash, and of course, these are just some examples. You have hundreds of different options. Who is the subject? You have to specify the subject. In our case, it's a husky, but you can do whatever you want. What kind of lighting? Is it cinematic? If it's with the sun or maybe ambient? What kind of context? In the park, at night? We told him that we want him running in the snow. What kind of lens? What kind of device, right? We can even say that it was taken by an iPhone. And this is just a small example. If you see real big prompts, you're going to see a lot more detail. Now you can go and see the different photograph styles. You can see the different cameras. You can see different lenses. There are a lot of different examples over here. And you can really get to know how to create good prompts using this book. So that's a very powerful tool that you can use. You can read this and it can give you more information. So before you even touch any other settings, you should, let's say, master prompts. You don't have to be a master, but you should at least know the basic way we use prompts, okay? Now, another website that I want to show you, and it's not really a website, it's just a small repository. You can find fully created prompts over here and you can see examples. So this is what a real prompt looks like. It's not one word, it's not even 5 words. It's an entire paragraph, okay? So for example, you want to create some kind of, let's say, digital art. And this is one that I really like to use. All you need to do is simply copy this, and you have the prompt over here. So they basically tell you you should put whatever you want over here, and then this will be the ending of your prompt. So let's copy all of this, right? Let's go back into Stable Diffusion and let's paste it over here. Now you can see that it's a very long prompt, but it means that it's very detailed. And look at the things that are a part of this prompt. Ultra realistic, concept art, intricate details, highly detailed, photorealistic. We want to give the AI an understanding about this image. We want him to create a very detailed and a very good image. That's why we provide all of these modifiers. We can also say that we want the art to be by these artists, right? I don't know about these artists, but the AI already knows artists that other people use, so it's just a way to make your image look better. But you don't need to really worry about that because they already created this prompt for you and you can just use it, right? So over here, we can just delete this part and say a photo of a husky running in the snow. That's it. All of this will still be a part of the prompt, but this is what we call the style of the prompt, okay? So you have your subject, you have your own part of the prompt, but this is the style of the prompt. So let's see how it looks right now. So now you can see that we get much better results. It's still not photorealistic like we said over here, but it looks much better. It's more detailed, it's more proportional, and we're going to talk about proportions. But you can see that we have this style over here. You can use this style over and over again. And instead of just copying this style over here from some kind of notepad, there is a very handy tool inside this automatic web UI. And I don't know if it exists in other workspaces, but over here we have these styles. So you can basically save this style and it will always be over here. You can see that I already have different saved styles. So all you need to do is delete your own prompt, okay? Or let's just copy it. Leave this style part, and then you press over here on Save Style. Then you give it a name, and we know that this style is digital art, right? So we're simply going to press OK, and now we have this over here. So the next time we open up Stable Diffusion, we don't have to type in this entire long prompt. We don't have to look for it online. We can simply write something else. For example, a photograph of Darth Vader. And you simply select this digital art, and that's it. When you click on Generate, it will add this style to this prompt. And you can have two different styles. You can play around with two different styles. You can combine them. So that's a very useful tool. Now, if you saved some kind of style and you're not sure about what are the words inside this style, you can simply press on this and it says apply selected styles to the current prompt. So it will basically take the prompt that was saved and it will paste it into this window. So let's click on this. It will simply add it over here. Now, there is no difference between putting it over here or using it as a style, but maybe you want to use it here and you want these two slots for other styles, okay? So that's why you have this option. Now let's see how it looks, okay? I have this photograph of Darth Vader. It should be capitalized because it's a name. And we have this digital art. Let's generate. So we really got some kind of digital art of Darth Vader, right? You have the reflection, the shininess. It really looks like digital art. It's not any other kind of art style, right? It's not pencil drawn or it's not a sketch or something like that. So we really get what we want, and it uses this style. Now I can keep talking about prompts and about things you should add to prompts and leave out of prompts, but it's a whole subject that I can spend a lot of time explaining, and this video is about beginning with Stable Diffusion, and we basically covered the beginner's part of prompts, okay? I even gave you more information than usual, so you can just play around, you can look online for different prompts, you can create your own prompts, okay? And you're going to get the hang of it. You're going to get more control using these prompts. Now, prompts are the heart of Stable Diffusion, but it's definitely not the only thing that gives us control. There are a lot of different settings, a lot of different tools, and I really want to cover some of them and give you the basic knowledge to use them. So let's continue. We have this thing that is called negative prompts. And here you put all the things that you don't want to appear inside your image. And it's usually something that is already saved, something that you will keep reusing in all of your images. You don't need to think about this each time you create an image. You're going to find some kind of very long negative prompt and you're going to save this as a style, and you can actually save it as a style the same way you save a regular prompt. And I'm going to show you an example. I have over here my negative general style, and if I click on it and then I click on apply selected styles, it will simply show us what we have inside this negative general. So you can see that it's very long and it looks kind of complicated, but it's basically all the things you don't want inside an image. Deformed, blurry, bad anatomy, disfigured, poorly drawn face, mutation, mutated, extra limb. Most of these are more relevant to actual human beings because Stable Diffusion has a hard time to create symmetrical humans, for example, the fingers and limbs. So we really need to tell him that we don't want all of these things. Disconnected limbs, floating limbs, gross proportions, out of frame, ugly, right? Maybe we do want an ugly image, right? So we're not going to include this, but most of the time we want a beautiful image. We don't want an ugly image. Too many fingers, fused fingers. So you're not going to play with this too much. You're simply going to save it as a style, right? You're going to find this somewhere and place it over here, and then you're going to save it as a negative style. So each time you come to create a new image, for example, a picture of Spider-Man, then you're going to apply your, let's say, positive style, right? Digital art, and your negative style. And then you're not going to get a Spider-Man with 4 hands, right? Although Spider-Man does have 4 hands in some kind of comic book. Let's run this again. So this time we said that it would be a picture, not a photograph. So this is more like a picture, but you can see that it looks pretty good. You can see his fingers, you can see his entire body. It's like a strange position. So we covered prompts, we covered negative prompts. There is this thing that you saw in the negative prompts with the brackets. These brackets basically mean that we want to emphasize a word, okay? So we can say a picture of Spider-Man sitting on a building ledge, right? So we can run this and see what we get. We really get a picture of Spider-Man sitting on a ledge of a building. And for example, we want to emphasize something in our prompt. Let's also take this digital art and apply it over here. So I don't like all of this information. Let's still leave it over here. But for example, we want it to be ultra realistic. and we want to emphasize this part. We want the AI to give more attention to this specific word. So we can do something like this. We can surround it with these brackets. We can put a colon, and then we can give it a number. So if, for example, we give it a number of 1, it will just give it this default importance, let's call it. But if we say 1.5, it will simply multiply the importance of this word by 1.5. So the AI will look at this prompt, but then he will see, oh, this is a more important word inside this prompt. So I'm going to create this, but I'm going to pay special attention to this word. Now, we can also say that we want this concept art -2, okay? So it will just make this in a lower importance. Now, we can keep going, and you saw with the negative prompts, right? You saw all the different prompts getting different emphasis. So this is the way. Let's see what we get. So I think we really got a more ultra realistic image, right? I don't know about the concept art, but although it is a picture, right, not a photo, it still looks like a photo. And that's because we set it to be ultra realistic and we gave this emphasis. So that's also a handy tool you should use with your prompts, okay? Now, before we continue to these popular settings, I just want to show you exactly what happens when you generate an image. First of all, you get the image over here. You can click on it. It will look bigger, and we can actually get all the information about this image. We get this entire prompt with the positive style, with the negative style, and we get the settings. We get the steps, we get the CFG scale, and we're going to talk about this. We get the seed, we get the size, and we get the modal hash. But the most important thing here, I think, that we get is this seed, because we don't get it anywhere over here. We can always find out the prompt, and we can find the negative prompt, but we can get the seed over here. And that's a very important thing to be familiar with. The seed is basically the unique variation of this image. Now, if you created an image and it looks good and you don't want it to be this way, right? You're not satisfied with this completely, but you're afraid that if you're going to generate again, it will just remove this image and it will create a completely different image. This is why you can use this seed. You can simply take this seed, copy it, and place it over here inside the seed input. Let's copy this. So the next time you're going to generate, it's going to create the same variation as this one. Now, if we're going to use the same seed and we're going to use the same prompt, we probably are getting the same exact image. Now, I'm not sure if we're always going to get the same exact image, but we should get the exact image because this seed is the unique variation of this prompt. Let's see, let's test it out. Worst case, we're going to get something very similar. We got something similar, but you can still see that it has the same style. It has the same light. It has the same buildings, right? It's like the same alley, right? We had these trees over here. We had the same suit. We get the same style. So now you can simply change things and use the same seed, and you're going to be sure that you're going to get something very similar. So that's a very important piece of information that you can get over here. Now, when you generate an image, you can send it to other tools inside this web UI. You can send it to image, you can send it to Inpaint, and we're going to talk about these. You can also send it to be a zip, and you can save it on your computer. Now, even if you don't save it, all the images that you generate are automatically saved on your computer. So if, for example, you had some kind of image and then you generated another one, you did not lose the other images. All of these images are saved on your computer, and the only way for them to be removed is if you actually manually delete them. Now we can click on this folder and it will open the folder inside the Stable Diffusion installation folder, and we're going to see all the images that we generated, okay? You can find this inside the Stable Diffusion folder, outputs, and then you have this text-to-image images. So these are all the images that we generated today. And of course, if I had more images from other days, I would see all of them over here. Now you also get all of this information on the images. You get the seed, you get the prompt, although we're not getting the entire prompt, we're just getting half of it, so that's not useful. But we do get the seed on all of these images. So if tomorrow you come back and you don't have the seed and you don't have Stable Diffusion opened, you can know the seed by this image. Now a very handy tool is this PNG Info. Again, I don't know if it's unique to this web UI, but you can basically click on it and you can select an image, and then you're going to get all of the information about the image inside Stable Diffusion, right? Because here, as I told you, we only get part of the prompt. So let's select this one, and we're going to get all of this information. Now, I don't know exactly how it saves all of this information inside the PNG file, but you can get the entire prompt, the entire negative prompt from this tool, okay? So if tomorrow you want to work on another image, you can simply go, click on it, and it will give you all of this information. Then you can simply copy this, go over here, paste it, go back, copy the seed, paste it, copy all of this negative prompts, but you will probably have them already saved over here, so you don't really need to do this, but that's the way you work with this PNG info. Now, another handy tool, another handy thing you should learn, and again, we're not going over all of these settings yet, is if you want to create this image with this prompt, but you don't want to keep pressing generate like I do. You want Stable Diffusion to create a bunch of images with the same prompt and the same settings. Maybe you're going to dinner, so you have this spare hour. So why not let Stable Diffusion create images while you're not here? You want to save time. You want to have some kind of perfect image, but you don't want to sit here and keep clicking on this generate. So you can go to this batch count and you can simply increase it. You can tell Stable Diffusion, I want 5 images. So it will create 5 images with this prompt, with these styles, with this seed, right? With all of this information. And you don't need to keep pressing on generate. You just press once. And let's see how it works. You just press on generate. And of course, it will take longer because just multiply the time by 5. But now you can just go do your thing. You can go make yourself a cup of coffee. You can go watch a movie. But when you return, you're going to have 5 images ready. And of course, if you have more time, you can put way more than 5 images. So now I waited about 1 minute to create these 5 images, and it's logical. If one image takes me 20 seconds, then 5 images would take about a minute, a bit more than a minute. So now you can see that it created 5 images with these settings. Now the reason we got this one as well is because we used the seed. So if we wanted them to be completely random, we should just use the random seed. And the random seed is -1. So when you start Stable Diffusion, the random seed you get is -1. And if you want to use a specific seed, you just put the seed that you want. But we inserted a specific seed, so that's why we got this strange image. But we got other images as well. And you get this grid image, so it's one big image with 5 images, but you also get all the images separated. Now, if you go to the folder, you can find all of these images separated over here. And we actually got some nice results. We got this one, we got this one. This is a very nice result. It looks really good. We even got a spider woman, although it's a bit weird with the mask, but we can fix this. We can make it really nice. And we got this one, which is also nice, except of this golden thing. I don't know what it is. Maybe these are some kind of webs, but now you can just pick from one of them. Let's take this one, okay? We like this one, but we do want to change some things. Now, there are different approaches to this. How do we actually take an image and we fix it, or we modify it even further? Because as I told you, you can spend hours on one image to make it perfect. So you need to use the same image over and over. And this is the usual workflow inside Stable Diffusion. It's not about creating different prompts and clicking generate and changing settings. That's not the main workflow inside Stable Diffusion. The main workflow is to take the same image and change it and keep changing it. So we're going to learn all the other settings by actually working on this one image, okay? I randomly picked this one and let's see what we can achieve. I got this seed, right? And if I'm going to click on the other ones, you can see that the seed is changing. It changes very little, but it still changes. So I'm going to take the seed of this spider woman. I'm going to paste it over here. And then I have this entire image. But now I can add something to modify this image. So let's say a picture of spider woman, ultra realistic, okay? Let's just change this part, spider woman. And let's see what we get. Now we don't want to wait a whole minute. We don't need 5 images. So let's just put it back to 1 and let's generate. So now we got something that is not really like Spider-Woman, right? We don't have any Spider-Man colors or symbols. We do have this red one because I don't think that Stable Diffusion really knows what we mean by Spider-Woman, okay? So it created some kind of female superhero and it kind of looks good, right? I mean, it's proportional, it's symmetrical. It can definitely be some kind of superhero that doesn't exist. But the thing about text-to-image is that it will always generate a new image when we click on generate, okay? So it doesn't matter what you have over here, it will just generate a new image. And most of the time, it's not suitable for what we want because sometimes we do like the actual image, but we want to change small parts of this image. So text-to-image will not do. So for this, we can use a tool called image-to-image. And with image-to-image, we can basically provide Stable Diffusion with a created image, and it will generate another image based on this image, okay? Now, we did not cover all of these settings inside the text-to-image, but most of them actually exist inside image-to-image, and they're even more relevant inside image-to-image. Let's just go over these ones before we continue to image-to-image. We have this sampling method, but I want to be honest, I never even change this. I always use this Euler A, and I get amazing results. So there is difference between these, and you can also hover over them, and it tells you exactly what is so special about this sampling method. And this is just a way Stable Diffusion renders your images, but you don't even need to touch this. Now we also find these sampling steps, and these are just the iterations that Stable Diffusion does by creating this image. Now if we hover over this one, we can see that it says setting steps to higher than 30-40 does not help. As a beginner, just leave it at 20 and you see that you get good results with 20. There is no point in going over. And another thing to know is that when you increase these steps, then it takes more time to generate an image. Now we can find the resolution, so you can change this, okay? But just know that when you increase the size, your GPU will consume more memory, and if it will reach its limit, for example, if I do something like 1000 pixels on 1000, it will probably just tell me that I don't have enough memory. Okay, so let's see. Generate. And you can see that it just crashed. And if we open our command line, it says runtime error, CUDA out of memory. Try to allocate 3.64 gigabytes, but it basically did not have enough memory to generate this image. So with my GPU, with my hardware, this is too much. There are ways to go around this. You can always increase the resolution with upscaling and with making your image bigger after you create it. But when you create images from scratch, you should just stick with lower resolutions. I mean, if I'm going to do something like this, it will probably allow me. Let's see. So you can see that it allowed me to do this. Always when you generate and you go somewhere, make sure it starts to generate, because maybe you are going to put 100 images for generation and it's going to crash. So you're just going to waste time. Always make sure it starts to generate before you actually go somewhere. Because in the first 5 seconds, it can crash and then you're just going to waste time. So now I got this very strange image, but you can see that we have 600 pixels height and 1000 pixels width. So this is some kind of image of Spider-Man and maybe another Spider-Man, but that's a very strange image, right? I don't know, maybe it tried to use this seed and then it tried to create this Spider-Woman. So it's something very strange, and you're going to get a lot of strange images like that when you use Stable Diffusion, but sometimes it's really entertaining. I guess if I'm going to remove this and put just a random seed, and I'm going to change it back to Spider-Man, it's going to create a much more logical image. Okay, so now we got this nice image of 2 Spider-Mans. Maybe these are 2 different Spider-Mans from different universes. I don't know, but it looks pretty good, except of this Spider-Man that has some strange limbs going on. And again, even though we're using this negative general, it's not always perfect, but you can see the resolution. It looks pretty nice and it's in a good quality. And of course, when you increase the resolution, it will take more time to generate an image. Now, we're not going to talk about this because it's not really important, and you can play around with this if you want to know what it does, but I never touched this. The restore faces is something that is more relevant for the Inpainting, okay? Now we have this CFG scale, and you can read information about all of these settings by just hovering over them. So it says classifier free guidance scale. How strongly the image should conform to prompt. Lower values produce more creative results. So it tells you everything. If I'm going to put a lower scale, for example 2, then it will say, okay, the user gave us this information, but he also told us not to pay attention to this information, because 2, it means that we should not pay attention to this information. Now it will pay attention to this information, but it will have more room for imagination. So if we say a picture of Spider-Man, ultra realistic concept art, and we say 2, maybe it will not even generate Spider-Man. Maybe it will generate Deadpool. Maybe it will just ignore parts of this prompt. But if we're going to increase it to something like 20, then Stable Diffusion knows that this prompt is very important, that it should really create an image based on the prompt. And in a second, we're going to see different examples with different scales. But again, it's not something you need to worry about as a beginner. You could just leave it at about 7. If for some reason we created something and it doesn't look good, it doesn't look exactly like our prompt, then you can increase it a bit, because you basically tell Stable Diffusion, pay more attention to my prompt. You are not listening to my prompt, right? So think about this as the loudness of your voice. You want to be very loud, you want Stable Diffusion to listen, or you want to be very quiet, you don't want Stable Diffusion to listen to you, so he will just generate his own things, right? He will just be more creative. But let's leave it at 7. Then we talked about the seed. You can also just set the seed back to randomize, or you can generate the last seed that was over here. This is the last one. Now the last thing that we have here is the thing called script, and that's something that is a bit more advanced, and there are a lot of different options here that I didn't even touch. Something that I do want to show you as a beginner, something that will also help you learn, is this XY plot. With this XY plot, you can basically generate many images with different settings, and you can increase the values each time. So you can actually see the different values of these settings being changed from image to image. So let's see an example. You have different types. You have the X type and Y type. So you have different options, different settings that you can change. Let's say we want to use this prompt, but we want to have different sampling steps, and we want to have different CFG scales. And we want to create 5 images, but each image will get different scales and different sampling steps. So all we do is go over here and we select steps, okay? And over here, let's say we select CFG scale. Now we simply need to tell it what are the jumps. So we want the steps range between 20 and 30, and we want it to jump 2 values each time, okay? So we do +2. Then inside the CFG scale, we want to say it start with 7, okay? And go up to 17. And jump by 2, right? We don't have to say jump by 2. We can also tell it jump by 1, maybe jump by 1.5. But let's say jump by 1. So what will it create? It will create an image for each value. So it will create an image with 20 steps. It will create an image with 22 steps. It will create an image with 24 steps, with 26, with 28, and with 30. And then it will also create an image for the different scales. So it will be 7, 8. I think it will be too much, right? So let's say it will jump by 2. So it will generate 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, and 17, okay? So it will generate images according to this. But the thing is that it's going to combine these values. So if you get a nice result and you want to get different variations and you want to control the different variations, you can do something like this. Now you can use any setting that you want. You can also say that you want nothing over here and you only have this one thing. So it will simply generate images with 20, 22, 24, 26. So this is a good way to learn about these settings and to get a bunch of different variations with the same prompt and then check what you like. So let's run this. Let's use these values. Let's use this prompt and let's generate. Now I need to warn you, it will take some time because we're going to get a lot of images. It will multiply this by this. So we're going to get a lot of images. So do this only when you actually have time. So I'm going to generate this, and by editing, we don't have to wait and we can just see the results. And of course, before we generate, we should delete this because this was just for the demonstration. It will not run this way. You need to make it with this format, okay? You have the first value, the last value, and the steps. Okay, the different variations. So it will jump by 2. Here it will also jump by 2. So let's generate. Okay, so it took me 15 minutes to generate all of these images. And now we got this grid over here. And inside this grid, we can see all of the different variations that we got from these steps. And we can see all the results over here. Now, if we want to see the grid, we can go back to the outputs. Now, a lot of them look very similar, but they do change as we go up the steps or as we go up the scale. You can see that even if we change the steps, we basically get the same images. These 3 are similar and these first 3 are also similar, but we don't get any big differences. Then when we go down with the CFG scale, we do get some variation, but these are not big variations. So I think that the CFG is something that has a bigger impact than the steps. That's why I never use the steps. Now you can see, for example, over here we get this yellow icon, and over here we get this yellow icon as well. Now there are a few strange things that are going on. For example, over here, suddenly we get Spider-Man with this lady. Why do we see this lady? We didn't even specify it inside our prompt. And also here we get Spider-Man as a woman. And I think it looks pretty good, right? But we didn't even specify it. Now these images also look good. This is more like another version of Spider-Man, and this is Spider-Man from the comics. But we do get some nice images over here, and you do see the differences when we change the different scales and the different steps. And now you can simply go to the images and you can select the one that you like. And most of the times I just go one by one, and for example, I don't like this one, so I just delete it, and then I go to this one, and then I think this one is not even Spider-Man, and then I have this one, but it's like a bit rigid here, and I don't know what this is, so I delete it. Of course, if the image was good, I could just keep improving it, but we need to select our initial image that we can work with, right? So this one looks nice, although we see this strange thing over here. And of course, we also get this Spider-Woman that we can make better. But you see this symbol, it looks more like a symbol of Wonder Woman. So it's a nice tool that you can play around with. You can use any kind of settings. You can use different seeds. You can use different styles, right? You can just use different styles over here, give different names, and it will generate the same prompt with different styles. Now that's pretty much all for this text to image. So this is the workflow. You start with an idea, and then you create a prompt to match this idea. And then you play a bit with the settings so you can get something that you like. But what happens when you got something that you like, but there are some parts of the image that you do want to change? This tool won't be enough. This text to image will not be enough, because this text to image does what it says, text to image. It takes the prompt and turns it into an image. But if we have an image that we generated, for example, this one, and we do like it, but we don't like parts of it, we need to use another tool to work and perfect this image. So we can use another tool that is called image to image. And over here, you can simply find it by clicking on this tab, and it will open another tab. It's very similar to the text to image tab, but some of the settings are different. And the layout is a bit different. And inside we can also see an option for Inpaint and batch image to image. So this is the place that I spend most of my times, because I get my initial image and then I perfect it over here. Or I'm not even creating an image using text-to-image. I can simply take an image that I already have. I can download an image from the internet. I can use my own photographs and place them over here and change them. So this place is also something that you can use on top of the text-to-image, but it's also a starting point for another project. For example, recently I created a banner for my YouTube channel, and if you visited my main page in the YouTube channel, you probably saw that picture. I'm talking about this kind of matrix, cyberpunk image of myself looking at screens. So that's something I created inside Stable Diffusion. Now, I did not write a prompt to get this because I tried to write a prompt, but I got some very unsatisfying results. So I decided to use another approach. All I did was go online and find this image. This is actually a screenshot from the Matrix movie. You can see Tank over here sitting inside the hovercraft looking at these screens. So it's simply a screenshot from the Matrix movie. Now this is something that I wanted to create for myself, but of course I didn't want to just use this image. I wanted to create something similar. So I took this image and placed it inside this image-to-image Stable Diffusion tool, and I started working on this image. I started to change things, I started to add things, to remove things, and eventually I got my result. So this place can also be a starting point, and it's a powerful tool to change images that you already have, but you can also use this to change images that you created using this text-to-image. So let's do this. Let's go to image, and let's click over here and upload an image that we created. So we created this image and we want to keep changing it. Now with image, we still need to supply it with a prompt. We still need to supply it with negative prompts. Again, we don't have to supply it with negative prompts, but we should supply it with negative prompts. But this will simply let the AI look at the prompt, but also look at the image. And then it will say, okay, you gave me this information, but you also gave me this information. And then it will generate an image based on the prompt, but also based on this image. Okay? So this image is another piece of information we can supply for the generation of this other image. Now, most of the settings are the same. The main thing that we also get over here is this denoising strength. And this denoising strength determines how little respect the algorithm should have for the image's content. Okay? So at 0, nothing will change, and at 1, you'll get an unrelated image. So if, for example, we're going to provide it with this image, and we're going to set the denoising strength to 0, it will basically just generate the same exact image. And it will also take into consideration the prompt. But if we say that the denoising strength is very high, then it will really change this image. And that's something nice that you can use. Of course, you can also use the XY plot over here and use this denoising strength and give it different values. You can start with 0.2 up until 1 and then just increase by 0.1, right? Like we did before. But the reason we don't have denoising strength inside text-to-image because there is no first initial image to apply this denoising strength. So let's see. When you're doing an image-to-image, you should use a text, a prompt that actually describes this image. So we can actually take the text that was originally used to create this image. So if we go to the PNG info, we can simply take all of this information and use it over here. We can also use this prompt, this negative prompt, okay? Now, another way we can use it, and that's especially useful if we did not generate this image using Stable Diffusion, for example, an image that I uploaded from my phone, then we can use this interrogate clip. And what will it do? Stable Diffusion will basically look at this image and it will generate a prompt that matches this image. So let's see how it works. Interrogate clip. It will take a few moments. And now you can see that it generated some kind of prompt. A woman with a Spider-Man mask on her face and a city in the background with skyscrapers by Francois something. So that's probably some kind of artist that Stable Diffusion thinks that created this art. But we can actually find a very precise description of this image. And now we can use this to generate another image, right? We don't have to use another prompt. With this example, I uploaded this image. I didn't have any prompt because I found it on Google. So I used interrogate clip and then it created some kind of prompt. A man sitting in front of monitors with code running or something like that. And then I could generate my image. So let's see, let's use this prompt. Let's leave these as they are. Let's say none, and let's just generate. Let's see what it will create. So we can see that it created some kind of very ridiculous image, right? Because what it did, it read this prompt, a woman with a Spider-Man mask on her face and a city in the background. So we do see a woman with a Spider-Man mask on her face and skyscrapers in the background. So it used this prompt more than it used this image. And the reason is because the denoising strength was very high, right? So it ignored this image and it generated a completely different image. But if I'm going to lower this to something like 0.2, I would guess that the new image will be very similar to this image. Let's see. Yes, exactly. Now, it did change the image. If you can notice, it actually made this image look more realistic, more polished. So this way you can actually improve. Now, I can go a bit up and then it will change the image even more, but will still consider the image. So now we got another woman. She looks much different than this one because we increased the denoising strength. Now I can change something here. I can say a woman, let's just say a woman and a city in the background. So we don't even want him to create a Spider-Man related mask. Let's see. Now it still created this mask, but that's just because the denoising strength is still pretty low. So it still takes a part of this image and it won't just generate a face without the mask, right? It created some kind of mask and you can see that it looks much better now. So let's say we want to get rid of this mask. We can just increase this, right? Maybe even to something very high. And let's see if it will actually remove the mask. Now, if it will not remove the mask, then we have to find another tool to do it. So you can see that now it removed the mask, but it completely changed the way this woman looks. We can still see the same perspective. It's still a close-up, right? It's still similar to this, but we lost all resemblance. So we can go back to something lower like 0.4 because I really like this woman. She looks nice. And that's not exactly what we had before, but it's just another variation. So you can understand that it will be really hard to get rid of this mask and still keep this part of this image, right? Because if we're going to set the denoising to a very low value, then it will just keep the mask. If we're going to increase it to a very high value, then it will completely change this image. Because image to image will always be applied to the entire image. And that's the actual downside of image to image. That's the limitation that we have with this tool. Now, of course, we have other tools that will take care of this problem. And this is using the Inpaint. So the Inpaint only changes this part and you get the same settings. And here you need to upload the image the same way you did over here. But the difference inside the Inpaint is that you get a brush. And with this brush, you can actually paint parts of your image, and only these parts will be changed. So let's import this image. And now it says start drawing. So we have this brush over here and we can increase its size. So let's just paint over this mask. Okay. And let's remove this. And we also have this seed. So let's find the seed from before, right? Let's find the original seed because we do want it to generate this part based on this tile. So let's place the seed over here. And the denoising will work the same way, but this time it will be applied to this part. So if we say that the denoising is low, it will not change this so much. But if we say that it's high, it will change it completely. So we do want to change it completely because we want to remove the mask. So we say 0.8. And now we can generate, and maybe it will remove the mask because we don't have any information about the mask over here. Let's see. So now it finally removed the mask. Now you can see that it still looks a bit weird, but we can also fix this. Now I could create like 10 more images and maybe one of these variations would look even better. I can really do something like that. I can play with the denoising. I can play around with the CFG, right? I can play around with these settings to get a better result. But I can also keep working on this image. So what will I do now? Will I keep trying different results? No, I will simply remove this image and I will use this new image. So I can click here and get the image from my folder, right? The new image. Or I can simply click here and send to Inpaint. So now it will send this image to the Inpaint. And now I can simply continue working. So I can color this part and maybe this part. And I'm going to use the same seed, the same prompt. Maybe I'm going to decrease the denoise because now we don't need to remove any mask or something like that. And we can also use this restore faces. So restore low quality faces using neural network. So it's a good thing to use when we want to increase the quality of a certain part. So let's just do this. And I don't know if it will work on a big face. It's usually working on smaller faces, on eyes that don't look good. But let's see how it works. Now let's create 5 different variations so we get a few different choices. Okay, so now we got 5 different options, and it's hard to know this, but there are some differences between them, but we can see that it looks much better. Now we can still see a difference with these skin tones, but we don't see this line in the middle, right? We can click on this thing and it will remove the mask. This brush thing is called a mask. So we can click on this and it will remove the mask. You can see this was the original image and now we don't have this anymore. So it's a progress. Now we can keep perfecting it. We can send to Inpaint. We can color all of this part and we can again try our luck. So luck will still be a part of this. So let's generate, let's wait a few more seconds. And at some point, it just becomes an obsession. It like becomes an addiction. You want to get a better result. You always want to perfect it even more, right? You spend more and more time. And now we can see that we still see the stone, but the eyes look a bit different. So we can keep doing this and we can keep playing with the different values. Now, we don't have to use this entire prompt for this because we're only masking a part of her head. So it's not relevant that there are skyscrapers in the background. It's not relevant. So we don't have to use all of this. We can also just specify things that are relevant to this masked part. So we can say something like, nice skin. And it's very short and it goes against everything that I taught you in the beginning about long prompts. But in this case, it may help us. It may change the skin to be nicer. I mean, maybe Stable Diffusion will understand that this skin is nice, but this skin is not nice. So we can also maybe decrease the denoising. Maybe we can increase the CFG scale because we want him to pay attention to the prompt. So let's say maybe 15, okay? And let's run this. So now the skin is starting to get even better and better, although her eye starts to get darker. Now, as I told you, it can take time to sit and perfect an image. And in our case, we're not really interested in this image, but other times you're really invested with some kind of image and then you're going to spend hours perfecting it. Now, because the Inpainting is using the colors that exist inside this image, we can trick it to generate our own things. Let's send this to the Inpaint. But for example, what if we want her eyes to be blue? Yes, we can brush paint her eyes and then say blue eyes, and maybe it will work. But it will work even better if we actually color her eyes with the blue color. So how can we do this? In other workspaces, you can find brushes with colors. In this web UI, I did not find any colors, but there's a very simple way to do it. We can simply go to the folder. We can go to our image, which is this one, if I'm not mistaken, and then we can simply open it inside our paint editor. And then we can take this, I don't know, spray can, choose some kind of blue color, make it smaller, or even very small, spray it on her eyes, and on this eye, right? And that's it. I mean, we can add other things as well. For example, maybe we want her to have earrings. So let's just do something like that. I mean, this looks ridiculous, but it will help the AI to generate something based on these colors. And you can actually create a blank image and just doodle around some images and it will create an entire realistic image. So when we did this, we're simply going to save, right? And then we can find this image over here. We go back to Stable Diffusion. We remove this one and we import the one that we changed. And now if we're going to paint this and this, and we're going to say blue eyes, it will actually help Stable Diffusion create a better result. We can also paint this one. I mean, you don't have to do it together. You can first do this, find a good result, and after you find a good result with the eyes, you can send it back over here and only then take care of this earring. I mean, we can also paint this right now and say blue eyes and gold earring, but then maybe the earring will be bad, but the eyes will be good. So you will have to start over again. So it's good to do it one thing at a time. So let's start with these eyes. Let's generate. And we can see that we got these blue eyes. Now, they're not very bright. They're not very bluish, right? So we can add blue eyes, vibrant colors, maybe glow, right? And remember that right now we removed this digital art. So maybe we want to add this. Let's generate. And now we can see that it looks different, right? And again, we can still keep working on this. Maybe we can even just take the original prompt, go back over here, put it over here, a picture of a woman with blue eyes and a gold earring. Yeah. So we can simply take and color this entire part, and it will change some of the eye. It will change this earring, and then we can simply generate. Of course, this way we're going to get a complete result, and we can't really choose between them. But you can see what we got. We got nice eyes right now. The earring is a bit weird. So now there's nothing we can do about it, but we can just send this back over here, and maybe we can just import this image into our paint editor and do it all over again. Another thing that I like to do is, if you don't want to paint something, maybe you want to add a complicated object, then you can simply go to Google, find a gold earring, remove the background, right? You're going to make it into an image with a transparent background, and you're going to simply paste it inside this image, and then you're going to do this with the mask, and it's going to generate something. So there's a lot of things you can do, but eventually you are going to get what you want if you spend enough time. And that's the basic workflow, okay? So if we go into this folder with my YouTube channel banner, I started with this image, which is just a screenshot from the movie, and then I used image to image. Then I got this image out of it. Now this looks weird, right? We have this guy over here, we have another guy over here. It looks a bit weird, like there's a city underneath. So I just painted over it, I changed some things, and I got this thing. Now we also got some kind of weird logo. I don't know what it is, where it came from, but the computers start to look normal. We also got this guy. Now I painted over him, and I used a thing called hyper networks. So it's basically a way to put your own pictures of yourself into Stable Diffusion, and then it will learn the way you look, and then you can put yourself inside these images. Now, it's something that I'm not going to cover in this video, but if you want me to create a video about this, about how to do it, just let me know in the comments. But I did it, and then it just generated a person over here with my head. Now, you cannot see my face, but it is me. I know my profile, it is the way I look. Okay, now I'm in this tuxedo, but that's not really suitable for this scene, so I kept working. I started to paint this with the Inpainting, and eventually I got this. Now I gave myself some muscles, and in real life I have some tattoos over this part, but let's say it's another dimension, right? And then I just painted a chair because I wanted him to sit on a chair, so I just used my paint editor to create some kind of goofy chair. I painted over it, and then I got this chair. And then I kept expanding the image, and I got this entire YouTube banner. Now, you may be wondering, what do I mean by expanding? How did I got all of this? And that's the next thing we're going to learn. Basically, you can add more to your image using a thing called outpainting. So inpainting is when you paint something inside the image. Outpainting is when you add things outside of the image. Okay, now there is an extension called Open Outpaint, which is basically an outpaint, but I don't know. I did not have a good experience with it. I never got good results, so I don't use it anymore. But you can also find websites that do it. You can find a website named Painthua, and basically you can upload an image. Let's say this one. You place it over here, and then you have this square, and you're going to select this part, but you're also going to select an external part of the image. Now you still need to provide it with a prompt. You still need to provide it with the seed, especially if you want it to generate based on this thing, and then it will generate another part for this image. Now, I never get good results with this either. Now, I don't know if I'm not using it the way I should, but I just don't get good results. I mean, let's test it out together. Let's use the prompt that we have over here. Let's use this negative prompt. Let's even use the same seed, which is this seed. And that's it. And now we're simply are going to click on this, click again, and it will take some time to generate this part of the image. So you see, we got a nice result by itself, but it's not really an extension of our image. Now we got 5 of them because we set it to create 5 images. Now we can just scroll, and you can see that this one is pretty nice. It created some hair. It created this earring because we said, yes, we said gold earring. Okay, so it created this earring. It created some kind of shoulder maybe. So it's actually pretty nice. I mean, we can still work on this. And then we also got this thing, we got this thing, and we got this thing. Now I think the best one is this one. Now I can simply press on this and it will save it. And now I can save this, Control S, it will save this image. And now I have this entire image, okay? Now I can go back into Stable Diffusion. I can import this image. But before we start working on this, just notice that the resolution has changed. Now it's no longer 1:1 ratio, but it's a bit wider, right? So we need to adjust it. So we simply go over here and we slide this until it actually covers this entire image. Now, if you're going to overdo it, of course, it's going to tell you that you're out of memory, but this should probably work. And now we can simply paint this part, maybe this part, and maybe we don't want this earring. Maybe we're going to remove this gold earring, and maybe we also want to remove this part, and let's see what it will create. We can also create buildings instead of this yellow wall. We can do whatever we want. The question is, how much time are we going to spend in this? So you can see that now it looks much better. We don't have this weird earring. For example, we want to add buildings over here. So we can simply paint all of this. And don't be scared to paint over her. Now we can say skies. How do you spell it? Let's find the original thing. Okay, now without this picture of Spider-Man, because we don't care about Spider-Man over here, but we do want to say buildings in the background. Okay, and we don't need this because we already have this digital art. I don't know why I did all of this. So buildings in the background. Now we're going to generate, let's say, 3 images and see the results. And let's say that we want to increase the denoising because we want to completely change this thing. Okay, and we can go to 1, right? But it's usually like an overkill. So if 80 will not be enough, then we can go up. And we do want him to create buildings in the background, so we're going to leave it at 15 or maybe even more, like 20. And we want 3 images. I don't know why it changed to 5. Never mind. So generate. So we have our results. The one with the sun between the buildings is also very nice, but I will go with these trees. The green color is a good addition to this image. So we managed to do some outpainting after all. But if you don't get good results and you don't like these external tools, there is another way. This is actually the only way I do outpainting, and it's very simple. You don't need any external tool or website, you only need a Windows Paint editor. We basically open our image in any painter, we add the section we want to extend, and we're just going to use Inpainting now, and it will do exactly the same thing the Outpainting does. Of course, it's very recommended to add colors and even drawings if possible to help the AI give us more accurate results. Then we bring it back into Inpainting, and we mask this entire new section, and generate. So after a few more changes, this is our final result. So we reached the end of this beginner's tutorial. I believe that you've learned more than enough to start creating your own art and explore all that Stable Diffusion has to offer. This is just the basic way we work in Stable Diffusion. There are more features, more tools, more possibilities. Things like custom models, embeddings, hypernetworks. I've added some useful links that are related to these advanced things. You can check them out. So thank you for watching. Please leave a like if you actually watched the entire video so I can know. And if you're still not subscribed, please consider clicking on the subscribe button. There will be more AI related videos in the future. So goodbye. This is our final result.